Fans of the Horus Heresy, thank you very much for joining me for my review of the Arcadian Female Trooper Squad by Victoria Miniatures. So, this is a review I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I've fallen victim to what I call productive procrastination. Now, productive procrastination, if you're unfamiliar with the term, I didn't know this until a few years back when I was on a leadership and management training course, and it's quite a useful concept to understand. And basically the idea of productive procrastination is where you have something that you know you need to do or want to get done. However, you, instead of doing that and instead of not doing anything at all, you do other things, and it looks like you're doing lots of useful stuff, and you know, maybe you're doing useful stuff, but you still got this thing that you haven't done yet. And for these ladies, I've had them a long time, and I've built a little bit of them, built a little bit more, and I never sat down and just got the lot done. Anyway, so I've finally overcome my productive procrastination on this squad. I finished assembling it, and we're going to do a review. Background to the Arcadian Female Trooper Squad. So these are manufactured, as I mentioned at the start of the video, by Victoria Miniatures. Victoria Miniatures are based out in Australia, and the principal sculptor is Victoria Lamb. I'll leave a link through to her website. Very interesting background story. I think it's fair to say that she specialises in sculpting miniatures, and particularly female miniatures that look like real world soldiers might do. And if you're like me and of the generation that grew up with the film, say Alien, Aliens and Terminator, you'll kind of appreciate the strong female warrior image, and moving away from, well, let's say other depictions of past times, and that's very much what I think it's safe to say these troopers do. So why did I buy these? Well, I bought these as part of my ongoing exploration, looking at alternative resin sci-fi miniatures, obviously to benchmark against the ubiquitous Forge World. I also bought them though because they were ideal miniatures to use as part of the militia list for the Horus Heresy, and in particular I've got a smorgasbord of weird and wonderful miniatures that I use as a Survivors of the Dark Age of Technology force, and these were bought to add to that. So that's the background. So let me start off by so this is kind of what you get with the pack. So yeah, it's 10 28mm heroic scale miniatures. You can see they very much resemble the art of early Games Workshop, late 80s early 90s stuff, and they're really rather interesting. So I've done an unboxing review of these, and I'll leave a link in the description to that, so please do check that out. Yeah, so let's have a look at some of these models. So we'll start off with the officer. These are multi-pose models. The legs are separate, you get a torso, you get the arms, the head, and then weapons are separate as well. So if we look at this trooper here, we can see she's armed with this laser rifle, or las rifle, and there are several different designs and different weapons. So you get assault rifles, various patterns of las rifle, and some energy rifles, which you know, are support weapon type things that you could use in games such as 40k, things maybe like plasma guns or melter guns. So these are very versatile models, and you can buy the torsos that you like, and then you can put all sorts of different guns on them. I picked the las rifles because I wanted line troops. They're also a nod to days gone by in a certain design style. Yeah, so this is the officer miniature. She's armed with this rather potent looking chainsword, a holstered las pistol or laser pistol, and then she's got this really rather neat forage cap on, which I just think is awesome. Forage caps, well, only badass troops wear forage caps. So yeah, I think that's ace. Let's have a look at a couple more of these miniatures. So you get a variety of the heads. Most of the heads are helmeted. You get the officer's head, which has got forage cap on, and then you get one head that is completely unhelmeted, which is this one, and she's got a pair of goggles on, which is kind of like put up over her head. They're really very well sculpted. I mean, the sculpting on these is it's really excellent, and while they are, as the product description says, they are heroic 28mm figures, they do they do have a certain real world look to them as well. I've certainly been very impressed by the poses that you get. And then obviously this trooper's helmeted. She's got this chin strap on, a pair of goggles pushed up over a helmet. Again, the laser rifle. As you can see, you get some really neat poses, and you get, I think there's four different styles of legs, 4 or 5 different legs, and then a variety of torsos. The weapons, you choose a weapon type. Then the thing that really kind of like rounds out the miniature, you get these equipment pouches. So you get 10 water bottles and then a variety of webbing pouches as well. And as you can see, or I hope you can see, the final 3D depth of the models is really impressive, and the detail's very fine. And they look really realistic. They look really cool troops, but they've got such a nice realism to them. And the poses as well, I just love the poses on them and how they've got a certain lifelike look. And as I was building these, I was thinking about the early Games Workshop artists and the early sort of like guardsman art. And I just thought, just as I built these, I just thought of Paul Bonner's art. And, you know, if you remember those early guardsman drawings, you can see why. Not just because of the style, but also because of the poses and the character of the miniatures. She's kind of, I don't know if this is accidental or intentional, but they really capture that sort of the dynamicism of his artwork, fun sort of realism of the poses he drew. So they're just great. I mean, and I'm absolutely delighted with the end result on these. I'm really pleased. As a resin miniatures, you can heat manipulate and bend the arms to a degree. I've done that a little bit on these, although I didn't find it particularly necessary to add variety to the poses. I did a little bit, but no, in the main I just built them and posed using the articulation without actually having to go into any bending. But the option is there if you need to. Who haven't we looked at yet? Oh, there's a couple more. Yeah, trying to show you each of them. And this just gives you an idea of how you could build them. And I don't know, for me, these poses, they just look so realistic, as well as the female troops, which she does in a number of different lines. She also does male troops as well. So if you really, obviously you could just buy a load and mix them all up and it'd look great. There's something that I see as being a bit of a rarity, to get realistic female troops. I just wanted to get a whole squad of them. And I'm really pleased I did, because I'm absolutely delighted with the end miniatures. And this one, you get a few other details as well. What else do you get? I mean, this one, she's actually wearing her goggles, which is a nice touch. So that looks good. She's like maybe zapping, shooting a tall thing. I don't know what it might be, but giving something tall a shot in the face. Here we go. As well as the pouches, you get a set of 5 grenades. I mean, they look like smoke grenades, and I stuck those on a variety of places. This one is like it's pinned to her webbing straps on her body armor. Looks really good. Yeah. So yeah, overall, really pleased with these miniatures. I'm very impressed with them. In terms of the end result, they look brilliant. These are now some of my favorite models in my collection now. Right, building. So what were these guys like to build? So let's just pick one out to talk about. So as I say, you got the legs, you got the torso, you got the arms, you got the las rifles, or whatever rifle you choose, and then a head, and then the webbing pouches. Now, I would say, in terms of the kit quality was very good. There was quite a bit of flash to remove for this sort of model, so that'll take you a bit of time to do, but flash in itself isn't that big a deal, as long as the parts are correctly aligned. There's a little bit of mold slips here and there. There's a couple on the legs, but they were very minor, so they're easy to clean up. I had some slightly bigger mold slips on some of the las rifles, and if you look at the design of this las rifle, obviously you've got a lot of all these tubes and all these kind of varying sizes of cylinders making up the las rifle barrel, so that some of these did take quite a long time to clean up, so probably just something to be mindful of if you get them. But overall, the casting quality on the kit was very good. I would say, in terms of building these are not exactly what I would call miniatures for beginners. If you've not built any fine resin miniatures before, these are a bit harder to make. Not because they're not because of the kit quality or bad design. They're just quite delicate miniatures, and because of the modular rifle design, these are quite, you need a careful hand to cut these correctly and attach them, get it all nicely lined up. And obviously the arms are quite thin and delicate, and when you come to do the equipment pouches, these are quite small, so I did use a set of tweezers for attaching some of my equipment, particularly the smoke grenades, because they were very delicate. Just something to bear in mind there. So yeah, they are a bit harder to build than some resin models. It's kind of like it's one of those trade-offs. If you add a lot of posability and adaptability into a kit, and then these very fine little details like the equipment pouches, they will be a bit trickier to build. But, you know, it doesn't mean the kit's bad, it just means that it's a slightly more sophisticated model, shall we say. If you've worked on Forge World models before, something just to be aware of is the resin that these are made out of is a harder resin than what they use. If you've worked on Anvil Industry models or military 1 to 35th scale resin accessories, you'll probably be more familiar with the sort of hardness of the resin. So it is like that. But, you know, again, it's a trade-off. Having the harder resin allows you to have very thin, delicate barrels on guns, and they're still strong enough. You get sharp, even sharper detail, and you know the detail on these, on the body armor and the depth that they've got is absolutely brilliant. So again, it's a trade-off. You know, you've got a slightly harder material to work on, however, more finely detailed miniature at the end of the day. I think to deliver to the UK for these 10, they worked out about £40, maybe £41. So that's about £4 per model. So they compare to things such as the Velataris Storm Section models by Forge World. So, you know, they're not cheap models, but I guess if you're living in Australia, then you've probably got a different perspective on the price because you don't have the shipping cost perhaps and the conversion, the exchange rate to deal with. But I'm not sure on that. But I think they're worth it. I certainly think they're worth it at that cost. Let's do some size comparisons. And how should we start? Well, we just talked about Velataris, so let's kick off with a Forge World Velataris. This is the Velataris Prime, armed with a Volkite Charger, and we shall pick up one of our Arcadian Guard. They're a bit shorter than this chap. Yeah, but probably, I mean, if this guy, you know, if you think about average heights of the average male height and the average female height, that's probably about right, actually. You know, if you're thinking about, well, certainly about Western Europe, where I'm from, the size differential is probably about right. And certainly if you were to do this size differential for me and Mrs. Leakycheese, the size differential will be a bit more like that, so it'll be a bit more pronounced. So yeah, size-wise, they compare very nicely to a 40k or a Forge World 30k miniature. Go for, oh, I've got a whole smorgasbord of comparisons here. Here we've got the Forge World Expeditionary Navigator model. So this is like a mutant human, a tall human. Yeah, quite. He certainly towers a bit there, but he's a bit of an oddity. But yeah, so that's another comparison. Watch now. I think it is time for one of the Emperor's Astartes, and here we have one of the Iron Hands clad in Mark V Heresy armor. Let's do a comparison. So height-wise, I mean, obviously, Forge World Marines are not necessarily that tall, really, which is probably a good thing. But bulk-wise, this dude is just enormous. He's absolutely massive compared to the female guardsmen. And actually, if you're wanting to make your Marines look Marine-sized, probably buying a force, compared to guardsmen, probably buying a force from Victoria Miniatures of the female and the male miniatures is actually going to create that size differential quite neatly. That probably looks not a million miles away. Well, I subscribe to the line of thought that says Space Marines are about 7 feet tall. I don't buy this 8 feet tall crap. But if you stand next to someone in a suit of powered armor that's 7 feet tall, well, if you ever need next to a costume person, they are actually absolutely enormous. They don't need to be 8 feet tall. That's for the custodians. Right, now let's have a Terminator. So here we have the Primus Medicae in his cataphractic Terminator armor, looking, well, medical. And next to a Terminator, yeah, quite small. But again, gives a great scaling and makes you actually feel that the Space Marine, the Astartes, is well scaled. Very good. Okay, moving up the sizes. Now moving on to true superhuman-sized individuals. Let's bring in one of the Emperor's companions. And here we have a custodian in the form of a Sagittarian guard. Yeah, okay. Now we're talking 8 foot tall. Now we're talking Titanic humans. Yeah, pointing up. Yeah, gun barrel fits in. Yeah, I bored out these gun barrels. Look rather neat. But yeah, so good size there. And then finally, let's have a representative of the Mechanicum in the form of an Myrmidon Secutor. And yeah, this guy, now it's getting really crazy, isn't it? The Myrmidon is absolutely enormous next to the Arcadian Guardswoman. But again, good scaling, and it actually makes the sizes feel real on these heavy Forge World models. Shall I stop there, or should I do just a really silly thing? Go on, let's do one absolutely ridiculous one. Right, go on. Battle Automata, Domitar class. So this is about Contemptor Dreadnought sized. Let's do a little shuffle, and ye gods. So he, or it, it's not he, it is probably approaching 3 times the height of the Arcadian Guardswoman. So that's absolutely enormous. And yeah, that gives you a good feel for what a Contemptor size comparison would be like. But as I say, if you're wanting to buy some miniatures that actually make the GW Marines and the other transhuman warriors and superhuman warriors look correctly scaled, then actually these are absolutely spot on. So what do we want to do to wrap up? Okay, forgot to mention before, spare parts in the kit. I did end up with a few spare parts. I ended up with 3 spare heads. So you do get a variety of heads. There's one there, so that's kind of like a helmeted one. A helmeted face grimacing. Oops. I know, well, it's definitely grimacing now after I fling it across the table, and then that's a woman with a slimmer face. You do get a bit of variety, and if you're to buy more of these, then that kind of gives you a little bit more. That gives you a way of increasing the individuality of each squad. I had 1 las rifle spare, and that's because I built the officer with her chainsword and las pistol. Now this. The reason I didn't use this las rifle was this actually shows the mould slippage I referred to earlier. There you go, you can see the misalignment there. With quite a bit of work, this could be fixed. Well, it could be semi-fixed. I mean, like, some bits were a bit off, but as I say, that ended up as a spare, and you know, I could use that in various conversions. I'll be fine. 1 spare set of arms. There you go, you know, for holding a las rifle, or a rifle should I say. Oh, one thing with the arms I forgot to mention is, so it helps with the construction, the stocks are all moulded on, so that makes the stock fit with the arm better, and that's a really nice little sculpting feature. And then finally, I ended up with 2 spare equipment pouches. I'm going to struggle. Oh no, oh yeah, got those in. I'm shooting this with my latest phone camera, and the zoom responsiveness, or the focus responsiveness, is very impressive thus far. So I'm shooting this under artificial night light in the after the sun's gone down. It's actually coping really well on the ISO performance. But there you go, we got them. So yeah, a couple of spare equipment pouches as well. So yes, there you have it, the Arcadian Guard Woman Squad by Victoria Miniatures. I've also got some regiments models by Anvil, and I need to, if I can overcome some more productive procrastination, I'll get those guys built, and they're going to make a really neat comparison against these for kind of both being human troops. And that's probably the next on my little side project with these. Keep an eye out for that. So what do I think about these? Well, if you've not already gathered it, I would highly recommend these. As I say, they are a bit harder to make. They're slightly more fine models. They're going to take a little bit more modelling skill to put together, but I think if you've got that, then the end result is well worth it, and I would recommend them. Let me know what you think of the Arcadian Guard Squad by Victoria Miniatures in the comment section. I'll be very interested to hear what you have to say. Thank you very much for watching. I will speak to you next time, and goodbye.